This is a Fox News alert. A bombshell report tonight on alleged physical abuse of multiple women by New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, so-called champion of choice. And the report is getting stunning reaction almost instantly. Trace Gallagher following the story live from our Los Angeles newsroom. Trace.
Shannon, the New York Attorney General initially tried to push back, but the allegations were ugly and damning, and within a few hours, Eric Schneiderman had resigned his office. 2 of the 4 women accusing Schneiderman of sexual misconduct publicly identified themselves. 2 did not. But all of them paint a similar portrait of a man who they claim drinks heavily and engages in physical and mental abuse before, during, and after sex. One of the women describes being in Schneiderman's Upper West Side apartment in Manhattan following a night out, saying he backed her up to the bed and, quote, all of a sudden he just slapped me open-handed and with great force across the face, landing the blow directly onto my ear. She claims Schneiderman accused her of scratching him, telling her that hitting an officer of the law is a felony. Before resigning, Schneiderman released a statement saying, quote, in the privacy of intimate relationships, I have engaged in role-playing and other consensual sexual activity. I have not assaulted anyone. I have never engaged in non-consensual sex, which is a line I would not cross. But the woman who claims he slapped her across the face says, quote, I want to make it absolutely clear this was under no circumstances a sex game gone wrong. This did not happen while we were having sex. A Sri Lankan woman says Schneiderman called her his, quote, brown slave and wanted her to call him master. She, too, says the abuse was not role-playing. It's interesting to note that in 2013, Donald Trump tweeted, quote, Weiner is gone, Spitzer is gone, next will be lightweight AG Eric Schneiderman. Is he a crook? Wait and see. Worse than Spitzer or Weiner. And last year, when Schneiderman sued the Weinstein Company for not protecting its employees from the alleged abuse of Harvey Weinstein, the New York Attorney General said this. Watch.
Women were coerced into facilitating Harvey Weinstein's misconduct. Sometimes they were targets themselves. If they refused, they were threatened with insults. Their careers were threatened. They were threatened with physical intimidation and violence.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and what you just saw was yet another example of a hypocritical, freaky, and racist Democrat in office, as is the case all over the country, not only in New York City where this situation was at, but also in California, also in Florida, everywhere, all across the country. I feel like they do the same thing. This has become a recurring pattern with these people. I'm not even surprised at all at what was here. He's hypocritical because of what he was talking about as far as Harvey Weinstein trying to lead the case against him because of his whole situation. Meanwhile, he's doing the exact same thing as Harvey Weinstein. And it was very interesting to see that Trump knew about it back in 2013. And here we are. We're in 2018, about 5 years later. And the guy resigns from his office when the information about him has been released. You're talking about at least 4 women who accuse this guy of abuse, sexual or otherwise. But let's get into the article to see exactly what's going on here so we can get a little bit more context. Aside from the video you just saw and aside from what is out there via tweets and whatnot. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office late Monday said it was opening a probe into former New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman after an explosive New Yorker article that alleged assault leveled by 4 women, the New York Post reported. And of course, there are links in this article, and this article will be in the box, as will the links in the article. Schneiderman, who had taken on high-profile roles as an advocate for women's issues and an antagonist to the policies of President Donald Trump. Yeah, I forgot about that. I almost failed to mention he's been the big-time never-Trumper, talking crazy on Twitter, talking about, oh, you're not above the law. And then he wants to be part of the whole hashtag Me Too movement. Meanwhile, you're the exact kind of person who would be the poster child of what Me Too is supposed to represent as far as what they're fighting against. So what are you really doing? Being a hypocrite, as is the norm when you're talking about these Democratic people. Not all, hashtag not all, but too many of them for my taste. But I digress. He announced his resignation late Monday, just hours after 4 women he was romantically involved with or had a romantic interaction with accused him of physical violence in the report. Schneiderman has been a very vocal supporter of the Me Too movement. He filed a lawsuit in February against movie producer Harvey Weinstein and the Weinstein Company following an investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct, saying the company broke New York law by failing to protect employees from pervasive sexual harassment, intimidation, and discrimination. Now, who's going to sue him for failing to protect the women that he was alone with or whatever the case may be? Is he going to get sued? Are you going to sue the governor Cuomo? Are you going to sue de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, because this guy was in Manhattan? Who are you going to sue? Are you going to sue him? Like, what's going on? He launched a civil rights probe into the New York City-based company in October after the New York Times and New Yorker exposed allegations of sexual assault and harassment spanning decades. The company later fired Weinstein. The women accusing him said seeing him speak out on sexual misconduct issues was part of the impetus in them coming forward. Yeah, I can imagine that, because if you've been victimized by this guy, Schneiderman, and he's on stage talking about, oh, we're not going to tolerate abuse. We're not going to tolerate women being mistreated by these big, powerful men. Meanwhile, you're the exact same guy that you are describing being against. That's you. So what's going on here? Of course, that would incense people who have allegedly been victimized by him. There's a statement right here from Cuomo. Let me see if I can pull it up. The New Yorker has published an article on Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, which reports multiple women making serious allegations of assault. No one is above the law, including New York's top legal officer. That's funny, because I think that Schneiderman had a tweet out there a while back talking about Trump's not above the law. Maybe that was a little Easter egg, dog whistle back to that tweet. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but I digress. I will be asking an appropriate New York district attorney to commence an immediate investigation and proceed as the facts merit. My personal opinion is that, given the damning patterns of facts and corroboration laid out in the article, I do not believe it is possible for Eric Schneiderman to continue to serve as Attorney General, and for the good of the office, he should resign as he has. And let's get back to the article here. All right. And of course, that was his tweet we just read. This is a man who has stated his entire career, his personal narrative on being a champion for women publicly. Tanya Selvartanam, one of the women, said, but he abuses them privately. He needs to be called out. Schneiderman, who had been running for re-election, said he contested the women's accounts, but while these allegations are unrelated to my professional conduct or the operations of the office, they will effectively prevent me from leading the office's work at this critical time. He said he will resign by the close of business on Tuesday, which of course is today, Tuesday, May 8th, 2018. 2 women spoke to the New Yorker on the record, saying Schneiderman repeatedly hit them during the course of their relationships with them in recent years, and never with their consent. Because he was trying to say it was role playing and stuff like that. No, you were just beating on women. That's what that was. Now, I'm not trying to say that women, it's all good on their end either. They're there, but abuse can be a complicated thing. But let's move on. Neither women filed any police complaints, but both said they sought out medical attention and confided in people close to them about the abuse. A third woman who was also involved with him told her story to the other 2 women, but said she was too frightened to come forward. All right. And here's, I guess, one of the victims. After the most difficult month of my life, I spoke up for my daughter and for all women. I could not remain silent and encourage other women to be brave for me. I could not. And here is the article from the New Yorker, or the opinion piece, whatever they want to call it. A fourth woman said Schneiderman slapped her when she rebuffed him during an intimate encounter, but also asked to remain unidentified. The New Yorker said it vetted the third woman's allegations and saw a photo of what the fourth woman said was her injury. The accusations led Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to call for an investigation and for Schneiderman to immediately resign. The Attorney General's announcement came soon after. Of resignation, that is. Announcement of resignation. The 2 women who spoke on the record, Michelle Manning Barish and Selvartanam, Both said the physical abuse escalated over time, including choking and hitting, and that Schneiderman was also a heavy drinker. So let's get this straight. You got this guy that purports himself to be this big advocate for women. Meanwhile, this guy is beating on women. He's a drunk. I mean, what's really going on? And he's racist. We'll talk about that in a little while if they mention it in his article. If they don't mention it here, I'll talk about it at the end. The Associated Press is identifying the women because they agreed to tell their stories publicly. On Twitter, after the story was published, Manning Barrett said, "After the most difficult month of my life, I spoke up for my daughter and for all women." Manning Barrett said she was involved with Schneiderman from mid-2013 through the end of 2014. Sel Vartanam said she was involved with him from the summer of 2016 until fall 2017. Manning Barrett said Schneiderman started getting violent a few weeks after they began dating, slapped her one night after an evening out, and escalating to choking her. She said she confided in friends, including novelist Salman Rushdie. Sel Vartanam, who was born in Sri Lanka, said Schneiderman started calling her his brown slave and made her say that she was his property or that he was her master. He wanted her to call him master. So, again, Democratic guy, right? You know, this is supposed to be the almighty white liberal. Somebody's going to come to your rescue. Somebody's going to be there for you in the Me Too movement. Meanwhile, on the side, you're beating women, spitting on them, choking them, calling them your brown slave, asking them to call you master. I mean, obviously you're leading a double life here. And this is not the only guy that's doing this. We're seeing this happen time and time again. In California, you got Democrats dropping like flies because of sexual misconduct allegations and or actual corroborations of sexual misconduct coming to the light. Okay, this is not even an isolated case, which is the reason why I'm covering it. Quote, "After I found out that other women had been abused by Attorney General Schneiderman in a similar manner many years before me, I wondered who's next and knew something needed to be done," Sel Vartanam said in a statement to the Associated Press. "So I chose to come forward both to protect women who might enter into a relationship with them in the future, but also to raise awareness around the issue of intimate partner violence." Schneiderman, a Democrat, of course, had issued a statement to the New Yorker saying, "In the privacy of intimate relationships, I have engaged in role-playing and other consensual sexual activity. I have not assaulted anyone. I've never engaged in non-consensual sex, which is a line I would not cross." Now, nobody has said there was any kind of rape going on, but as far as beating people, that's what happened, according to the women. His representatives sent the same statement to the Associated Press when asked about the accusations. They also sent a statement from his ex-wife, Jennifer Cunningham, who said, "I've known Eric for nearly 35 years as a husband, father, and friend. These allegations are completely inconsistent with the man I know, who has always been someone of the highest character, outstanding values, and a loving father. I find it impossible to believe that these allegations are true." Now, my question would be, what would be the motivation for these women to come out and lie about him? Why do that? And then, as far as I know, he had been married to his wife for a long time. Maybe this was going on while he was married. So already right there, you're dealing with somebody that is not of 100% trustworthiness. I'm not sure if they were, dealing with each other while they were married or not. But all I know is that you have some stuff out here and he's kind of like halfway admitting to doing it, but he's saying, oh, it was consensual. So obviously it's something going on that's inappropriate, regardless of whether he wants to totally admit it or not. Cuomo in his statement said no one is above the law, et cetera, et cetera. I think I read that earlier. Schneiderman, who won a state Senate seat representing a Manhattan district in 1998, became Attorney General in 2010 and had been running for re-election this year. Under the state constitution, a vacancy in the office is filled by the state legislature. Schneiderman has a history of recognition for activism on behalf of women's causes, including reproductive rights, meaning he's a champion of abortion. Okay. The 63-year-old has also been a longtime critic of Trump and has been part of several efforts to push back against some of his actions in the White House, like the rescinding of protection for immigrants brought to the U.S. illegally as children. So he's a big time supporter of DACA, I suppose, and also of the Me Too movement. Meanwhile, he is the poster boy for what the Me Too movement should be against. Should be, because I think the Me Too movement is about other things at this point, but I digress. Last month, he urged state lawmakers to close a loophole that said he could be used to fight state charges by anyone who has received a federal pardon for similar federal charges. On Twitter, Donald Trump Jr. offered pointed commentary. He showcased one of Schneiderman's tweets from last year saying that he would remind President Trump that no one was above the law, which is why I talked about that earlier in a segment from Cuomo, talking about it being above the law. Maybe it was a little bit of a point back to this tweet here. And then Trump added on to that tweet that Schneiderman had a year ago. You were saying, meaning, okay, you're not above the law right here, sir. So it's time for you to face the music. A Republican opponent, Manny Alessandro, had just officially launched his candidacy on Monday. After the New Yorker report, Alessandro said, if true, he is a disgrace and wholly unfit for the role of New York State's chief legal officer. I believe the accusers. And that is pretty much it for the article right here. Now, like I said before, this is not anything new. I'm not surprised. I don't think that anybody should be surprised at this. This is a normal thing for the Democratic Party, especially in the very highly liberal areas like California, like New York. This is just what they do. Now, I'm not saying that anybody on the Republican side is just totally immune from doing this. Far from it. There have been cases of people on the right doing things like this, but obviously it's much more widespread on the left. But now it's just coming to the forefront. It's to the point now where they're coming out so fast and furious that you can't even really keep track of it. But this one just highlights a very interesting one, because this was a guy who was trying to so-called act on behalf of women that had been victimized by the whole Me Too situation. And he got himself involved with the Harvey Weinstein kerfuffle on the side trying to be against him. Meanwhile, he should be on Harvey Weinstein's side. Actually, he is on Harvey Weinstein's side because they do the same thing. But I'm going to leave that there. What do you guys think? Do you think that this is another example of the same old, not too much has changed? Do you think that this is a mountain out of a molehill? It's not really a big deal. How do you feel about the hypocritical nature of what I just read? This guy's talking about hashtag Me Too. Meanwhile, he's out here beating up women allegedly. Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.